The real secret behind most rich people in America is so boring that almost nobody can stand to follow it. It is not a stock tip, it is not a hustle, and it is not some loophole hiding in the tax code. The secret is that slow, steady, almost embarrassingly dull consistency beats raw intensity in nearly every financial race ever run. But that sounds like something stitched on a grandmother's pillow. Therefore, most Americans dismiss it and go hunting for fireworks instead. So this is the story of two savers, one explosive and one boring, and the 30 years that settled the argument forever. Meet Tyler and Dana, two 25-year-olds starting the same job in the same office on the exact same Monday morning. Same salary, same city, same rent, same student loans, and the same quiet dream of never worrying about money again. On paper, they are financial twins, but the way their brains handle money could not be more different. Tyler believes in intensity. He attacks his finances the way Americans attack everything, with a burst of maximum effort and a countdown clock. In January, he launches a no-spend month, eating rice and beans while proudly posting his empty restaurant budget online. By February, he has saved more in 30 days than most of his coworkers save in half a year. His friends are impressed, his spreadsheet is glowing, and he genuinely believes he has cracked the code. But March arrives, and the deprivation bill comes due with interest. Exhausted from saying no to everything, Tyler swings hard the other way and books a spontaneous trip to Vegas. One weekend erases 6 weeks of sacrifice. Therefore, Tyler decides the problem was not the method, but the missing upside. So he pivots to intensity of a different flavor, hunting for the investment that will make all this suffering worthwhile. He pours his savings into whatever is roaring that season, because sitting in something boring feels like losing on purpose. Meanwhile, Dana does something so unremarkable that nobody at the office ever thinks to ask her about money at all. She sets up one modest transfer into a plain index fund, timed to the same day she gets paid. The amount is small enough that she never feels it, and dull enough that she never brags about it. No sprint, no streak, no countdown, no announcement, just the same quiet move every 2 weeks, whether she feels motivated, exhausted, heartbroken, or completely indifferent. At the end of year one, the scoreboard tells a story that would fool almost everyone watching this video. Tyler is winning, and honestly, it is not even close. His hot streak caught a rising market. His intense months banked real cash, and his account towers over Dana's. If this were a movie trailer, Tyler would be the hero, and Dana would be the cautionary tale. But wealth is not built in trailers, it is built in decades, and decades are where intensity goes to die. Because here is the problem with intensity that nobody selling motivation ever mentions on camera. Intensity requires fuel, and the human brain only produces that fuel in short, unreliable bursts. Psychologists have watched this cycle for years, and it shows up everywhere Americans chase dramatic transformation. Think about what happens to every gym in the country during the first 2 weeks of January. The parking lots overflow, the treadmills are packed, and the air practically hums with brand new resolutions. But walk into that same gym in the middle of February, and it is a ghost town with mirrors. Researchers found most resolutions collapse within weeks, not because people are weak, but because sprinting is not a lifestyle. The exact same curve shows up in crash diets, in productivity systems, and yes, in money. Extreme restriction triggers extreme rebound. Therefore, the harder Tyler squeezed, the harder his spending snapped back. Every burnout cost him more than money. It cost him momentum. And momentum is the entire game. By year 3, Tyler has restarted his financial life 4 separate times. Each reboot launched with total confidence. Each time he sprints ahead of Dana for a few glorious months, and each time the sprint ends the same way. A market dip scares him out at the bottom, but a recovery lures him back in near the top. He is not dumb and he is not lazy. He is simply doing what excitement always demands. Excitement demands action. Therefore, Tyler is constantly buying, selling, switching, and tinkering with his future. Dana, on the other hand, has now gone 3 straight years without making a single interesting decision. When the market crashed, her transfer went through anyway, quietly buying shares at a discount she never noticed. When the market soared, her transfer went through anyway, and she felt exactly nothing about it. Her strategy has all the drama of a dishwasher cycle, and that is precisely why it never breaks. Now fast forward to year 10, because this is where the boring secret starts flexing in public. Tyler has earned more raises, taken bigger swings, and experienced far more financial adrenaline than Dana ever will. But when he finally adds up a decade of sprints, crashes, restarts, and fees, the total is humbling. All that intensity produced roughly what a savings account would have, minus the ulcers. Dana never once beat the market, never picked a winner, and never had a single story worth telling at a party. Therefore, her balance has quietly crossed 6 figures, built from contributions she literally forgot were happening. The gap between them is no longer about effort, because Tyler has objectively tried harder for 10 straight years. The gap is about interruption. And this is the part of the math most Americans have never seen. Compound growth is not a straight line. It is a hockey stick, and the bend comes late. Money doubling from $1,000 to $2,000 feels like nothing, so beginners assume the whole ride feels like nothing. But the same doubling that turns $1,000 into $2,000 eventually turns $400,000 into $800,000. The catch is that the explosive part only arrives from money that stayed in the game long enough to reach it. Every time Tyler cashed out, panicked, or restarted, he dragged his money back to the flat part of the curve. He kept planting seeds and digging them up to check the roots. Therefore, nothing ever grew tall. There is a famous piece of market research that makes this brutally concrete. Studies of past decades found that investors who missed just the handful of best market days lost a massive share of their total returns. And those best days have a cruel habit of hiding right next to the worst ones, when scared money is sitting on the sidelines. Nobody can predict those days, but everybody can be present for them. And presence only requires one skill. The skill is staying. And staying is boring, and boring is exactly what Tyler could never tolerate. Now here is the twist, the part that turns this from a nice fable into something a little uncomfortable. Tyler's biggest obstacle was never the market, his salary, or even his own discipline. His biggest obstacle was an entire industry that gets paid every single time money gets exciting. Trading apps earn nothing when a person holds an index fund quietly for 30 years. They earn when thumbs are tapping. Therefore, the apps are engineered with confetti, streaks, and push notifications like a casino floor. Financial media earns nothing from the headline that says, "Stay the course. Nothing has changed. See you next decade." It earns from urgency, from crisis, from the next big thing, and from the fear of missing out. Even social media punishes Dana's approach, because nobody goes viral posting the same automatic transfer for the 9th year in a row. So American culture quietly taught an entire generation that boring money means broke money, when the truth runs exactly backwards. The researchers who spent years surveying actual millionaires in America kept tripping over the same awkward discovery. Most of them were not founders, celebrities, or lottery-style stock pickers with legendary timing. They were teachers, engineers, mechanics, and managers who ran the same dull financial play for decades without stopping. They drove ordinary cars, lived in ordinary neighborhoods, and let unstoppable consistency do the heavy lifting. Their secret was never hidden in some vault. It was hiding behind a wall of pure boredom. Because boredom, it turns out, is a moat. Anyone can copy a strategy, but almost nobody can copy the willingness to repeat it 10,000 times. That willingness is rare, therefore it is valuable, and that is the entire boring secret in one sentence. By year 20, the story of Tyler and Dana has stopped being close and started being cruel. Dana's account has entered the steep part of the curve, where the market's growth now out-earns her paycheck. Her money makes more money in a good year than she contributes, and it does so without asking her opinion. Tyler is doing better than before, because he finally slowed down in his 40s. But the decade he burned never comes back. Time was the one ingredient he could not sprint his way into, and intensity ate his time alive. He would need to save triple what Dana saves, every month, for the rest of his career, just to catch her. The race was never about speed. It was about not stopping. And here is where this story stops being about Tyler and Dana and starts being about everyone watching. Because almost every American already runs Dana's system flawlessly, just in the wrong direction. Nobody musters intensity to pay their phone bill, and nobody needs a motivational podcast to renew their streaming subscriptions. Those payments happen automatically, consistently, and invisibly. Therefore, they never miss a single month. The average household has already proven it can be perfectly consistent. It has just been consistent for other people's wealth. Flipping one piece of that machinery around is not a sacrifice, it is a redirection. It does not require a better personality, a bigger salary, or a single ounce of the willpower Tyler kept burning through. It requires choosing an amount small enough to survive a bad month, and then refusing to renegotiate with it. Small and permanent beats large and temporary, every time, in every study, across every income level. A person saving $50 every payday for 30 years will quietly embarrass the person saving $500 for 6 months. Not because 50 is impressive, but because 30 years is. Raises can feed the number over time, and windfalls can top it up. But the heartbeat never changes. Payday comes, the transfer fires, and life goes on without a ceremony. Some months it buys shares on sale during a crash, and some months it buys them at record highs. Averaged across decades, none of that drama matters, which is exactly why the strategy survives every headline ever printed. Now, none of this means ambition is the enemy, because earning more will always pour more fuel into the machine. Chase the promotion, build the business, negotiate hard, and swing big in a career where effort actually compounds. But keep the saving side of life deliberately, defiantly, wonderfully dull. Let the career be the adventure, and let the portfolio be the appliance. Because the people who got this backwards spent 30 years entertained and ended up with stories instead of options. And the people who got it right spent 30 years bored and ended up with both. So the next time some breathless video promises a thrilling shortcut to wealth, remember Tyler's decade of fireworks. Remember that every sprint has a finish line, but a habit has none. Remember that the market pays for time served, not for enthusiasm displayed. Rich people were never hiding the secret from anyone. They said it out loud, in interviews, in books, and at kitchen tables for 100 straight years. Save the same amount, automatically, forever, and then go live an interesting life somewhere else. Nobody buried the secret. It just never trended, because boring never does. And that is the final, glorious punchline of the whole story. The secret to getting rich in America has been public the entire time, protected by the strongest security system ever invented. It was simply too boring for anyone to steal.